Yananjanashalaakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamsha Nama Om Vishnu Padhaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Bhashyatya Deshatarine He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Pancha Kalpatarubhyasya Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna. So welcome to the series on Bhakti Tattva Viveka, deliberations on pure devotion. Yesterday we discussed as part of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu discussion, further continuing with what Bhaktivinoda Thakur has been speaking about Anya Abhilashita Shunyam, how one should be free from the desires for bhukti and mukti. Mukti spurha yavat pishachi riddhi vartate. That was the verse which was quoted. So Vaidik sadhakas who are qualified for Vaidhi sadhana bhakti, although these impressions are there, but because they are absorbed in the bliss of bhakti, they don't desire this. Whereas those are siddhas, there is no, they are perfected devotees, they don't have only these desires. That was the difference between the two. And in that context, we discuss there are gradations in Mukti Spruha. So we went through the gradations. Of course, Sarupatvam, Ekatvam is completely rejected. But even the four, Sarupya, Salokya, Samipya, and Srashti, they are not so contrary to devotion. Nati Viruddhati, they are not contrary. And among these four, there is one predominated by happiness, Sukh Aishwarya, happiness and powers which are natural to the spiritual world, and one Prema Sevottar. There is happiness out of love, there is only service. But even in that, there is Rupa Goswami saying that those who are attached to Govinda, they give up both these. So Kaishwarya and Prema Seva Uttar. So that was the conclusion what we discussed yesterday. And then we went through further some points about Gyan Karmadi Anavritam. Avrita and Anavrita. So we discussed that. So these are the second extrinsic characteristics or the Tatastha Lakshan which we discussed. Then Bhaktivinoda Thakur, how does one attain this seed of Shraddha? He gives a nice poetic rendition, and he explains how the jiva becomes caught up in the ocean of material existence because of forgetful of Krishna, and he's suffering, and then he starts crying from within the heart, oh alas, I've fallen in this ocean of material existence. I've been carried away by the waves of Maya in the form of lust, anger, greed. I don't see any hope, and he collapses. At that time, the Lord shows his compassion in the form of Paramatma, directs to him to a devotee, and he attains the seed of Shraddha. He attains the seed of Shraddha. Within this seed of Shraddha, there is, it is in the form of a sprout, but there is the when it is fully blown, then it can mature into bhava and prema. And then what is the danger before attaining the stage of nishtha? This also nice poetically explains about Shraddha comparing to a newborn baby girl. So you have to protect it from all other living creatures, sun, heat, cold. Otherwise, it might get sick, especially newborn babies. They can catch infections. Similarly, Shraddha Devi should be protected from all these until it blossoms into Uttama Bhakti. So this was also yesterday what we discussed. Now the next theme, before he concludes, Bhaktivinoda Thakur presents is Bhakti is the seed of Gyan and Vairag, not the result. This is a very important discussion. In the conditioned stage, the pursuit of knowledge, renunciation, and so on are unavoidable for the living entity. But if knowledge is of a particular variety that is unfavorable to devotion, it can ruin bhakti. So this, if knowledge is of a particular variety, that means the impersonal gyan, knowledge which culminates ultimately into liberation. So that is not only unfavorable to devotion, but it can ruin also the. So that is the point he makes. Hence, according to Sri Swami, the word Gyan here refers to the pursuit of impersonal Brahman. So this knowledge means knowledge of pursuit of impersonal Gyan. Gyan is of two types. Spiritual knowledge that is directed towards obtaining mukti, and Bhagavat Tattva Gyan, which arises simultaneously along with bhakti within the heart of the living entity. So we are now hearing the Tattva Vivek. It is deliberation of pure devotion. This is also Gyan, but this is Bhagavat Tattva Gyan. This is Bhakti Sambandhit Gyan. By this knowledge, our how to execute devotion, the abhidheya, how to perform devotion. So that is also knowledge. You have to acquire that knowledge. But this knowledge is Bhagavat Tattva Gyan. And by this knowledge, our devotion increases. We execute devotion. With that devotion, naturally there is realization. Knowledge springs forth. That is also knowledge. That is Bhagavat Sambandhit Gyan. So this kind of Gyan is favorable for devotion. But the Gyan, which is directed towards mukti or the pursuit of impersonal, that is unfavorable to devotion, and it can also ruin our bhakti. That is the point Bhaktivinoda Thakur is making. The first type of Gyan is directly opposed to Bhakti, and it is essential to stay far away from it. Some people say that Bhakti arises only after the cultivation of such spiritual knowledge, but this statement is completely erroneous. So only when you attained Gyan, then that is a stepping stone to Bhakti. So this is how the Gyanis also sometimes address their arguments. So this is completely erroneous, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says. Bhakti actually dries up by the cultivation of such a knowledge. So if you cultivate such knowledge, the Bhakti will completely dry away. On the other hand, knowledge concerning the mutual relationship, Sambandh, between the Supreme Lord, the living entity, and the illusionary energy, which arises within the heart of the living entity through the faithful cultivation of devotional activities, is helpful for Bhakti. So this is Bhagavad Sambandh Gyan. What is my relationship? My relationship with the Lord. What is the relationship of me and this universe? What is the relationship of the Lord with this universe? So this Sambandh Gyan of the Jeev, Jagat and Jagadishwar. This is what we call it as Tattva Traya. This Sambandh Gyan, it's very, very favorable for the cultivation of devotions. This is Bhagavad Sambandhat Gyan. This knowledge is called Ahetuki Gyan. Knowledge that is devoid of ulterior motive. Ahetuki. Hetu means there is an ulterior motive. But this Bhagavad Sambandhit Gyan or Bhagavad Tattva Gyan, as Jiva Goswami Bhaktivinoda Thakur coins it, that is what? That knowledge is devoid of ulterior motive. Anyone knows in the verse in the Bhagavatam where it is mentioned that Bhakti ultimately gives rise to Bhagavad Sambandhit Gyan, the matured Bhakti, and it also gives rise to renunciation. Anyone knows any verse in the Bhagavatam? Anyone can cite a verse in the Bhagavatam which states that Bhakti gives rise to Bhagavad Sambandhit Gyan, which is without ulterior motive, and it gives rise to also renunciation. Which is the verse? Anyone else? Okay, Govinda Proji, yes, Proji.
Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Jana Ati Asu Vairagyam Jnanam Cha Tat Ahetukam.
Yes, yes. Sut Goswami in the Srimad Bhagavatam 1-7 says, Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Janyatyashu Vairagyam Jnanam Cha Yad Ahetukam. Jnanam Cha Yad Ahetukam. This is Ahetuki Gyan. Ahetuki Gyan means what? Knowledge that is devoid of ulterior motive. Whereas the Jnanis cultivate Gyan with a Hetu. What is their Hetu? To attain Mukti. Then it is not Anya Abhilasha Tashanam. There is Abhilasha for Mukti. So there is a Hetu that. But this Bhagavad Sambandhit Gyan in Bhakti Yoga, this is what Jnanam Chayad Ahetukam. Bhakti Yoga that is performed for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord Vasudeva brings about detachment from all things unrelated to him. Vairagya. And gives rise to pure knowledge. So this Gyan is here referred as pure knowledge that is free from any motive for liberation. Jnanam tad ahetukam. And directed exclusively towards the attainment of him. Okay, now my question to devotees is, after seeing this verse, it is mentioned Bhakti Yoga Prayojita. When one is engaged in Bhakti Yoga, Janeti Ashu. Janeti means to give birth. Ashu means very soon. What? Two things, Vairagya and Gyan. Gyan here also refers to realized knowledge. So my question is that we are practicing Bhakti Yoga. How many of us we feel that, that Vairagya and Gyan has given birth because of practice of Bhakti? How many of us feel yes? If it is yes, then give me the reason. If no, why it is not happening? Because this verse is saying so. I hope the question is clear. Who will answer this? Sridhamacharan. Any other devotees? I would like to see others. Birendra. Okay, we'll first give Sridhamacharan Prabhuji. Yes.
Yes, Prabhuji, thank you. Prabhuji, as this verse mentioned that Janati Ashu Bharagya, by practicing devotional service, you are coming to know that what is our constitutional position. And by knowing that, we are working to, that means we are living our life to attain that Krishna Prem rather than that material assets. So this is that means by practicing devotional service, we are getting Vairagya detachment. Yes, then Gyan means, as you told, the knowledge, we are getting
No.
knowledge.
My question has to be clearly understood. My question is that this verse is telling that when Bhakti unto Vasudeva is performed, Janeti Ashu. Janeti means it gives birth very quickly to Vairagya and Gyan.
Yeah.
Okay. That is realized Bhakti Sambandhit Gyan only, Bhakti Tattva Gyan, very quickly. So, we are all practicing Bhakti Yoga. Are we experiencing this, what this verse is saying? Yes or no? If it is yes, then you'll have to tell. If it is no, what is the reason you'll have to tell?
Somebody else will sing, then I will tell. I want to hear.
Okay. Virendra Yadav Prabhuji, you had raised your hand.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Yes.
So it is definitely because
Pardon?
Because I can personally feel it, and this is also characteristic of.
No, your voice is not clear. It's breaking.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, is it audible now? Hare
Yes,
Krishna.
better.
Prabhu, I think it is yes. It is yes, and I can experience it also. And the reason is the first characteristic of practicing Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti starts with Klesha Agni. And slowly it drives our attraction towards material things, and that we can see.
Yeah, so the verse is saying Janiti Ashu Vairagyam. So have we developed complete detachment from this material world?
I don't know.
Yes or no?
But progression.
But the verse is saying Janiti Ashu Vairagyam and Jnanam, realized knowledge.
Not yet completely.
Not yet complete, yes, not yet complete. Okay, so it is no then, right? In one sense, it is no, right?
Yes, true.
Yeah, okay. Yes, Reena Mataji, you wanted to say something?
हरे कृष्णा प्रभु जी दंडवत प्रणाम एक्चुअली जस्ट एज प्रभु जी ने कहा वैसे ही सेम वी आर इन प्रोग्रेस मतलब जो भक्ति के पहले था जो हम भक्ति माने के पहले क्या थे और आज है तो डिफरेंस बहुत है कि हम लोग पहले मटेरियल चीजों के बहुत ज्यादा अट्रैक्ट होते थे अभी बहुत मतलब इट्स नॉट 100% गॉन
need not go into the details whether it is yes or no.
It's not detail but we in the work in progress not 100% but we are practicing in that not 100%.
Okay, fine. So I also was reflecting for many years that no Vairagya is still manifesting where this verse is saying. So Vishwanath Chandra Thakur and Jeev Goswami in their commentaries they give highlight. They say Bhakti Yoga Prayojita. Bhakti Yoga Prayojita means Bhakti Yoga which has attained Prayojan. That means one who has attained Sadhya Bhakti. So that means one who has attained Bhava Bhakti. So when one attains Bhava Bhakti, then Janeti, it gives birth to what? Vairagya and Gyan, realized knowledge. So this is one explanation, and another explanation is Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita. Prayojita refers to Bhakti Yoga which is done in the mood of Dasya, Sakya, Vatsalya or Madhurya. Situated Swarupa. Again, it refers to Bhava Bhakti. So, as long as Bhakti Yoga has not attained Prayojan, that means you have not attained Sadhya Bhakti, till then, Gyan and Vairagya will not fully manifest. So, as getting work in progress, or yes, but Janeti Ashu, Ashu means very quickly. So, when this happens quickly, it happens when we attain Prayojan or when we attain Bhava Bhakti. So, that is the understanding the Acharyas give. I hope it is clear. Now, by carefully reviewing all the previous statements, we can understand that to remain uncovered by Gyan, Karma and so forth, which means accepting them as subservient entities, and to engage in the favorable cultivation of activities meant to please Sri Krishna that are devoid of any other is called Uttama Bhakti. So now Bhaktivinoda Thakur concludes even the discussion on the Tattva Lakshan. Bhakti is the only means by which the living entity can obtain transcendental bliss. Besides Bhakti, all other methods are external. Now, with the assistance of Bhakti, sometimes fruitive activity, karma is identified as Aropa Siddha Bhakti, endeavors that are indirectly attributed to the quality of devotion. And sometimes the cultivation of impersonal Gyan is identified as Sangha Siddha Bhakti, endeavors associated with or favorable to the cultivation of devotion. But they can never be accepted as Sarup Siddha Bhakti, devotion in its constitutionally perfected stage. So here, Bhaktivinoda Thakur has introduced that it is Shuddha Bhakti in only what is defining. But there are other types of Bhakti which are mixed. And Jiva Swami has coined these terms, Aropa Siddha Bhakti and Sangha Siddha Bhakti. Of course, we will be seeing this in the next coming chapters quite in detail. But just to give an idea, we might do some activity based on our guna vritti because of the gunas modes, because of our sabhava. So we do karma, and that karma is then offered to the Lord. So the karma itself is not bhakti. Please understand this. The karma itself is not bhakti, but that karma, when it is offered to the Lord, then it is called as karma arpanam. Then it takes the quality of bhakti. So that is why it is called as aropa siddha bhakti. Bhakti ka arop ho jata hai usme. That act itself is not bhakti, but because of the offering of that karma and the results to the Lord, then there is, it takes the quality of bhakti. So that is called as Arop Siddha Bhakti. Endeavors that are indirectly attributed to the quality of devotion. This is Arop Siddha Bhakti. I'm just giving you just hint. Of course, quite exhaustively, this is only discussed in the Bhakti Sandarbhas. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur is dealing in detail a little bit in the second chapter, which we'll be beginning now only. And what is Sangha Siddha Bhakti? Sometimes certain endeavors which we do, which are not directly bhakti, but they act as assistants to bhakti. They act as assistants to bhakti, or they are favorable to the cultivation of devotion, or they are associated with it. Just like to give an example, Ashtanga Yoga, one of the limbs is, Yam, Niyam, Asana, Pranayam, Pratyahar. So, in order to meditate, one has to sit in a proper asana and focus on one point. So, this has nothing to do with bhakti, because bhakti means the Navida bhakti, or the 64 angas of bhakti. But we take the assistance of pranayam or sitting in proper asanas so that we can attentively sit and chant. So these endeavors which are done, they aid, they are used as an aid for our bhakti. So they are called as Sangha Siddha. Sangha Siddha. Sangha means, association. Siddha means bhakti. So there are these different types of bhakti. This is Arop Siddha Bhakti and Sangha Siddha Bhakti, which will be dealt in the next chapter. But Uttama Bhakti or Kevala Bhakti is called as Swarup Siddha Bhakti. It is intrinsic to the Swarup of the soul. So that's why it's called as Swarup Siddha Bhakti. Now he makes another point. Swarup Siddha Bhakti is Kaitav Shunyam, free from any deceit. Kaitav means duplicity or deceit, and full of unalloyed bliss by nature, meaning that it is devoid of any desire for heavenly enjoyment or for attainment of liberation. So, Swarup Siddha Bhakti is Kaitava Shunya. But in Arop Siddha Bhakti, the desires for sense gratification, bhukti, and liberation, mukti, remain in a hidden position. So, Arop Siddha Bhakti means there are abhilashas. So that's why that bhakti is not Uttama Bhakti. It is Mishra Bhakti. And that Mishran, Jiva Goswami terms it as Arop Siddha Bhakti, because there is desire for bhukti and mukti. Therefore, it is also called Sakaitava Bhakti, deceitful devotion. Is Kaitava, Sakaitava. Oh, my dear intimate Vaishnavas. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur is very intimately, addressing us, very personally addressing us. By our constitutional nature, our constitutional nature is that we are, in our Swarup, we are soul, free from all these gross coverings, subtle and gross coverings, subtle and gross desires. By your constitutional nature, you are attracted to Swarup Siddha Bhakti and have no taste for Arop Siddha or Sangha Siddha Bhakti. So that is why sometimes it is more important for us to know what is mixed devotion or a Mishra Bhakti than to know what is Shuddha Bhakti. Because if we don't know what is Mishra Bhakti, then whatever Mishra Bhakti we are doing, we might think that is Shuddha Bhakti. So that is why in the next chapter, he's going to deal a lot about this mixed devotion. Although these two types of devotion are not actually Bhakti by their constitution, some people refer to these types of activities as Bhakti. So by their constitution, they are not Bhakti, because there is Arop Siddha Bhakti, they are Arop Siddha Bhakti. That is not, they are not Uttama Bhakti, or they are Sangha Siddha Bhakti. In fact, they are not Bhakti, but Bhakti Abhas. So this is the term Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Jiva Goswami use. A semblance of real devotion, because there is desires for bhukti or mukti, so it is not real, it is semblance. Just like the sun rays are covered by fog or clouds, so there is only abhas of the sun coming up to us. So similarly, the constitution of the soul is a natural attraction out of love to serve the Supreme Lord, but when the covering of the subtle body's desires in the form of bhukti and mukti come, then there is abhas in that. So that's why he terms it as bhakti abhas. If by some good fortune through the practice of bhakti abhas one develops faith in the true nature of bhakti, then only can such practice transform into unalloyed devotion. But this does not happen easily, because by the practice of bhakti abhas, there exists every possibility of remaining bereft of unalloyed devotion. So, by a practice of Mishra Bhakti, and we think that is Bhakti, so if we are not having the knowledge of that it is Abhas Bhakti or it is Mishra Bhakti, then we are completely bereft of Uttama Bhakti or unalloyed devotion. Therefore, in all scriptures, the instruction is to follow Swarup Siddha Bhakti or Uttama Bhakti. Now he summarizes everything. In this short article, the intrinsic nature of unalloyed devotion has been explained. Having carefully reviewed all the instruction of our predecessor acharyas, in summary form, we are presenting their heartfelt statements in the following verse. So, in summary, Bhaktivinoda Thakur is presenting this his own verse composition. It is Purna Chit Atmake Krishne Jivasyanuchidatmanah Padirahita Cheshta Bhakti Swabhaviki Mata. Very beautiful definition. This is also a definition of Uttama Bhakti. Shri Krishna is complete, Purna, all pervading consciousness, Chid Atmake, who always possesses all potencies. Purna Chid Atmake Krishna. And the Jiva is an infinitesimal conscious entity who is likened to a single particle of light situated within the ray of unlimited spiritual sun. Jivasyanu Chidatmana, the natural and unadulterated endeavor, Upadi Rahita Cheshta, of the infinitesimal conscious entity towards the complete consciousness is called Bhakti. Bhakti Swabhaviki Ta. The living entity's persistence towards Anya Abhilasha, acting to fulfill desires other than the desire to please Krishna. Gyan, the cultivation of knowledge aimed at impersonal liberation. And karma, future activity, is called acquiring material designation. So I hope this statement is clear to you. We should understand that the natural inherent endeavor of the jiva can only mean the favorable cultivation of activities to please Krishna. So that's how Bhaktivinoda Thakur ends this first article on the Swarup and the Tatastha Lakshan of Bhakti. So any questions, any clarifications up till now what we have discussed? Yes, Birendra Yadav Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Yes.
So just one clarification. Is there any link between Namabhas chanting and Abhas Bhakti?
Is there any link between Namabhas chanting and Abhas Bhakti? Well, the concepts are similar, but Namabhas chanting, there also Bhaktivinoda Thakur and all the acharyas bring out that the terminologies are the same, but there it is in a different context. Here it is taken in different contexts, but there is similarity. But here, with respect to the definition of bhakti, that Abhas Bhakti is not Shuddha Bhakti. Similarly, that Naam which is chanted also, it is Namabhas. It is not real Naam. Naam ka Abhas. So the concepts, there is similarity. But of course, if we know the Namabhas concept. Within Namabhas, there's Chaya Namabhas and Pratibimba Namabhas. So similar concept will be there in Bhakti, which we will be discussing in the now coming chapter. There will be Chaya Abhas Bhakti and Pratibimba Abhas Bhakti. So both the concepts, there is similarity, but here it is taken in the context of Bhakti, there it is taken in the context of Nam. Is it clear, Prabhuji?
Right. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. So now we will today just begin our second chapter. Very, very important and interesting chapter. And after hearing this first chapter, how many of us feel that whether we are practicing Sarup Siddha Bhakti or whether we are practicing Bhakti Abhas? You'll have to answer, and why also you have to answer. I want everyone to understand, because this is a very important topic. Yeah, everyone has to. I'll only have to start one by one. Yes, Rina Mataji. 1 second.
Krishna.
Just hold on.